Around 200 kilometers north of Cape Town is the Cederberg wilderness area. It is a place of exceptional beauty. At Sanddrif cottages and camping site, there's much to do, from wandering between the magnificent rocks of the Valley of the Red Gods to clambering up the steep mountain face and then reach the top via the Wolfberg cracks, which can be done via two routes, one easy, one rather tough. A river meanders through the area as well, perfect for cooling down on a hot day. And then there's a rock pool called Maalgat, our intended dive site. It is nestled between some steep cliffs on a narrow gorge. To get to Maalgat requires a hike of about 20 minutes, and you obviously have to carry all your gear with you. I managed to borrow a small 4-liter cylinder and took my lightest gear along in order to minimize the weight I had to carry. Every gram counts when you have to lug it yourself, that's for sure. The path takes you along rocky ledges and through some thick growths, and while there are a few ups and downs, there are no tricky sections as it's mostly flat. Good shoes are however recommended if you carry heavy gear. In around 1994 I was there with some friends during high summer, saw Maalgat and decided to bring dive gear along the next year. And between 1995 and 98 I managed to dive it numerous times, including at night, which was quite awesome. Perfectly black sky with all the stars, your eyes accustomed to the dark, it was simply magnificent. In 1998 I managed to get an article published in a local dive magazine, which was also very cool. Now, around 30 years later, I finally managed to get back there again, so it was time to try the dive once more and see if anything had changed. Maalgat itself doesn't look like much, a not particularly big hole filled with dark water and surrounded by steep cliffs. The color is natural. Tannins from fine moss leach into the water, turning it a dark yellow-orange color. Although it is not big, the deepest I recorded was 8.3 meters. This time around I managed to find a spot 7.5 meters deep. In the article that I published I wrote that the depth depended on the water levels, which seems quite obvious, but what I meant was that it depended on how strong the river flows and thus how much water comes through. As you go down, you immediately notice the color of the water, and when you switch your torch on, you can see there are many small particles floating around. This wasn't the case 30 years ago, where it simply got darker, but the water was still clear. I think those particles were just caused by people swimming and jumping into the water and stirring up the bottom, nothing more serious than that. What is there to see down there? Some tree branches, rocks and boulders, and some sandy areas, all covered with fine silt which is easily stirred up. Not exactly the most exciting. But there are fish here, and this is one of the main reasons I wanted to dive here again, to see if they were still there. The fish is the Klein William yellowfish, an endemic and endangered species which is under threat from invasive alien fish species as well as habitat destruction from humans. This is a school of juveniles a few centimeters long. They are silvery with some dark spots and they seem to stick to the bottom. If you look up, however, closer to the surface, you can see larger ones. These are about 30 centimeters long or so, which means they are still quite small given adults can reach nearly a meter in length. They supposedly make for good angling, but even with catch and release it would be nice if these endangered fish were to be left alone, if you ask me. Previously I had seen crabs and possibly another species of fish, but given the lack of visibility I didn't see any this time. Is this still a worthwhile dive? Well, I was a bit disappointed due to the reduced visibility, but I was happy to have gone again after all these years and find that the yellowfish was still seemingly thriving, which given the proliferation of invasive alien species in many of our rivers was not guaranteed. So all in all, I found it worth the effort. Would I do this again? Absolutely. It's an unusual dive and hopefully next time the water will be clear again. I hope you enjoyed this short video. Thanks for watching.